Okay, the title of my presentation today would be about a paper that I wrote titled Nuclear Chain Reaction as Model for Research. The paper is actually about how to explore PhD research, and it's also how to explore how to become a genius, because that is my passion to look into the possibilities of ways on how to become a genius. I know it's a very difficult topic, but uh, I think we just need to start somewhere. So, in PhD study or explorations, uh, common people uh, say that, say that when you get a PhD, you can be considered as a brilliant guy and perhaps as a genius or so. Because when you see that when Einstein do his PhD, during his PhD study that he stumbled to a uh, new things that prove of his ideas about the the theory of energy that he was famous about, E equal to mc squared. So when we look into how to get a PhD, a lot of people couldn't give a good illustrations of how to get uh, started and to end up your PhD, meaning that you manage to uh, finish your PhD, you manage to get at the finishing line. Okay, so the best illustrations that I've been looking into was given by Matt Mind. Okay, Matt Mind, he created an illustrations guide to a PhD. We can have a look at here. The first thing that we need to imagine that during the starting point, we have nothing, we have no ideas on how to do a PhD. So we need to imagine a circle that contains all of human knowledge, and then our PhD is could not be seen. It's meaning nothing there yet. But by the time we start our school, perhaps after your degree or your master, you start to focus on certain things that interest you. Just like in my case, I'm interested in nanotechnology. Okay, so you got some points started there, and then when you get some interest point, when you go much more deeply looking into it, okay, or maybe you finish your degree or master degree, you start having some ideas on on what is nanotechnology, something like that. So with your degree or your master degree, you start having certain kind of focus of what you want to do. And then this focus, when you got your master degree, you are being channeled to a certain directions. So if you go deeply to these certain directions, keep on focusing it during your PhD, you keep on exploring it, then eventually it come to the border of the whole human knowledge. I mean, the border of your research. Then at this point, you got some. new things that you are trying to look at. So these new things uh, that become your PhD research. Okay, and then of course, when we see for this image, okay, you see this is the red and then this is black, meaning the black is the research development. So no matter how, you can see that our PhD is only a tiny part of the whole human knowledge. So that's the illustration given by mind, but it doesn't give you uh, much better understanding on how to look at it. So I wrote a paper titled Nuclear Chain Reaction as Model for PhD Research. Okay, and my name is Dr. Muhammad Arif Agam. I'm from University of Tunisia, Malaysia. And you see that this is some of my abstract for that paper. PhD is actually as a research journey which demanded a good model of exploration. So that might give you a little bit some kind of how to explore things. And that might model started with a small dots, which later explored toward the outer knowledge boundary to the creation of small research part. So that is the idea by given by MedMind. The model introduced by MedMind can be actually extended further by applying nuclear chain reaction strategy. Give a good illustrations on how to explore your PhD journey. So the nuclear chain reaction model of PhD journey can be further explored in determining the state of your PhD research explorations. We can see when you start, when you understand that you have done enough, and when you want to close up or finalize your thesis that you end up your PhD journey. So by looking into the chaos theory, I will explain to you later, and the nuclear chain reactions, we can combine this and give a better illustrations on how to get your PhD. So if you look at the mind, you can look at just like you start at a point and then you explore towards the outer boundary. But I would like to give you a new things, a new motto, a new formula that you start with a point, you end up at many. And how can that become possible? So you look at the exponential graph. Exponential graph like y equal to 2 to the power of x, where x can be 0 until whatever number, yeah, integer, integer, and y can also be the power 3 to the power of x. Okay, so if you look at, you start y equal to 2 to the power x. If x is 0, you got 1. If x is 1, you got 2. To the power of 1 is 2. And if x is the power is 2 to the power 2 of 4, meaning that by using this formula, you start at one point, you can end up at many. You got 8. Okay, if you start with 3, you get even 27. So the exponential graph is correspond with the exploration done here. If you look at whatever research, whatever field, here is a literature citation count, okay, for nanotechnology. And at this time, uh, we can see that we can look at nanostructure, self-assembled nanolithography, and scanning tunneling microscope or atomic force microscope study. about nanotechnology. So the paper is, if you put it in this kind of category, you can see that the nanolithography seems very flat lined, and scanning tunneling microscope is become like exponentials, but the most important exponential is sub-assemble. So meaning that if you look at any other graph also, just like a coronavirus graph also, it started with one case and suddenly now it's become having about 2 million people, 2.5 million people infected by coronavirus. So meaning that it only takes one step, one idea, one motivations, and if you keep on doing that, you get more. That is what you can see, that you start at a point, when you go forward, then go explore it. It will be creating a new buds. So this can be used to look into things, especially we know that we need to use the exponential graph. So started with a point, we can elaborate till we reach to the boundary of knowledge. So originality discovered new discovery, which enlarge the world knowledge boundary. Okay, meaning that we start with the origin here, we can discover more and more and more in the future. Okay, you can do whatever research that interests you. So graphically, all new knowledge such as nanotechnology behave the same pattern. The coronavirus also behave the same pattern. The pattern is exponential graph. Okay, so now if you look at this image here, I that term is the fundamental of knowledge explorations. Okay, you can explore it from the left or to the right, or from the above or to the below, and meaning that you can go any point that you like. And just like McMind graph, you start with one point. If you go to this side, you will be stumble to this boundary. Or if you go to the upper part, you will stumble to this boundary. Or if you go to this side, you stumble at the left side or going to the below side. So that is what happens in knowledge explorations. Some people are looking into educations towards the teacher, looking into educations towards the student, looking into the educations toward the subject matters. So this is what happened to whatever things that interest you. You can be interested in anything, so you don't have to worry about your PhD title or topic whatsoever. One point that you need to realize is you need to start somewhere. So let's say you are interested in nanotechnology, but you are also interested in magnetic. So you start with magnetic nanomaterials and towards looking into how can materials behave as a magnetic materials. So the same goes here. If you look at this graph, okay, you can say that we start here and then it come across to many boundaries. Okay, you start with, let's say you start with agriculture, and then it will be involved chemistry, it will be involved mathematics, it will be involved with economic, environments, materials, computers, and this also can be involved with physics. So although you are in agriculture, you tend to go towards other fields also. But some fields are become very close, like physics with material becoming so close, like physics and engineering will become so close, like physics with mathematics and chemistry, a little bit closer compared to agriculture. So this is the image of the boundary of our knowledge here. That's talk about nanotechnology. So this is somehow the pattern could be look like. So the motto that I use, you start at one point, you end up at many, can be also become true here. You start at agriculture, you can go towards chemistry, you can go to physics, you can go to computers, you can go to medicals, health, and whatsoever. So the exponential graph y equal to 3 to the power of x or y equal to 4 to the power of x. What is the meaning of this basis of 2, 3, and 4? And let's say we base it as 2. You start at one point, you get another 2 points. From that 2 point, you get another 4 points. And from that 4 points, you get another 8 points, meaning that this is the exponential numbers. You start at one point, you end up at many. And this has become the symbol for the Muslim. And that's how the Muslim become increase exponentially because they believe one guy need to be able to influence to two guy. It means they need to make themselves as a model that been followed by two other people. And this is also true for nuclear reactions, but nuclear reactions will be based on three. Okay, you start with one neutron, you got three more neutrons. From three neutrons, you got three more neutrons that is being accelerated and bombarded to another uraniums. Then you get split another three. So you got this formula will be much faster. So that's why in atomic bomb, the rate of producing the next three neutrons by the first accelerated neutron is the one that created the massive energy, the massive explosion of atomic bomb as given these pictures. So that's why in Islam it's the best to prove that it is the true religions because it has a formula, completely show it has a formula. Compared to the others religion, they don't have a very specific formula. Okay, that's why in Islam, the Muslim managed to make create a new civilizations within 100 years since Prophet Muhammad, meaning that how it is possible to create a new civilization within just 100 years. It's because the power of the formula that been used by the Muslim. One guy need to at least influence two other guy, and that is the simplest form of the formula. And it also can be used for your PhD. So you got one point, you go and find two other point. Okay. Therefore, in my PhD study, I started with one point or one keywords. So meaning that the point can be established as your keywords. Okay. So you look at it. I start with nanosphere lithography. So I just type the nanospheres into the uh, Google search engine, and I found that nanospheres I get about 148,000 pages that publish about nanospheres. And then if I try to browse for self-assembly, I got about 2.4 million. And for lithography, I got 7.6 million. From this simple finding, okay, I realized that lithography will be much more explored. or maybe it's much more older compared to the research on self-assembly on nanospheres. So by combining the nanosphere lithography, then I know that I start with nanosphere lithography. I can look at nanospheres. From nanospheres, I found that it can become as a polystyrene materials, or it can become as silica, okay, or other materials. And then from focusing on polystyrene nanospheres, I try to find what can it, how to modify the polymer. We can use laser and electron beam. Then from laser and electron beam of nanospheres, uh, now you can get doping nanoparticles and laser, meaning that you start at one point, you start at one keywords, you can go toward more keywords later on. The same here. You start one keywords, then we just basically find two keywords that correspond with your works. So just like my nanosphere lithography, find out about nanospheres. I found about lithography, and lithography I know is involved electron beam now is related to here. And then of course lithography will be about how to accelerate the electrons for electron beam lithography, or how the wavelength is being produced and react with your polymer. So meaning that it's a very simple way to look at how to explore your PhD. Okay, now the same goes here, the same things. You start at one point, okay, you end up at many. So from nanosphere lithography, I know about lithography. I know need to look about basic concept of lithography. I need to look at photolithography, electron beam lithography, deep band lithography. Of course, from here, photolithography, we can see that so many things that can be related to it. So the same goes with electron beam and deep band nanolithography. Maybe we need to find who uh, looking into it. Just like assembly, we get the capillary force, and then we can see that K Nagayama are doing more research about capillary force, and the same goes with the other keywords that we specified in looking into our interested subject, interest subject. Okay, so from the research that I started for my PhD, I found that modifying the polymer, especially polystyrene, not been looked into carefully. So that's become my PhD study on how to look into uh, the possibility to create modifications of the polymer structure. So, meaning that the nuclear chain reactions become the basic idea for how to start your PhD research work and how to expand it to become much more. So now you will look at the words here, expansion of your idea, and then I put it theory if, meaning that we should be using the if word for whatever we are looking. Let's say like nanosphere lithography. What if the basic concept of lithography? If the lithography can be used with just wavelength, and oh now if the wavelength is much smaller, that we can use electron beam. So the if is becoming important here in your exploring your research idea. And then now back to the things here. This if is about possibility. Meaning that if you change one thing, you have changed everything that is here. You start at one point, you look at the changes, you just try to find two things that related it. That is the small changes you are looking through. So in chaos theory, if you change one thing, you have changed everything. Meaning that the starting point of you interested in something, you do another step, you got two new things to explore. Okay, you got another step you go, you get the chain reaction will be happen. Okay, so that's why this is called also as a chaos theory, because we can start with something else like here nanospheres. We can start with silica, and maybe we can start with gold nanoparticles that in spear-like structure. Okay, so many possibilities if we can make it expanded towards things. Okay, now using that idea, okay, using this idea, we can see that how to finish your PhD is looking at these green-like structures that resemble as fruits. Okay, so meaning that for a fruitful PhD journey, your research work should be look like this. You start at one point, you get at many. Now from many, we need to reduce it to become at one point again. So just like A to Z and then Z to A back. Okay, so this is how uh, a PhD. So meaning that if you do your PhD, if you didn't get many things, you will not be able to go towards this part. Meaning that once you get so many things, you need to start to reduce things. That is the point that you realize you are going to the finish line of getting your PhD. So starting point, accelerate yourself, meaning that you need to start getting the interest, getting the motivations, you get the idea, you try to use if these people use nanospheres, I will use some other materials, maybe the material that having hexagonal structure. Okay, so that is if. So modified polystyrene structure is my PhD study. So I know I can use heat, I can use electron beam, I can use laser, I can use chemical, I can use maybe mechanical techniques. But if now we look into electron beam radiations, because it's much smaller, so it can modify the polystyrene much easier. So that's the things of the now if the nanosphere is doped with metal nanoparticles, then bombard with laser. That is the work, my extended work to for my PhD students, Ubaidillah and Jibin Al Haji, and also for Abdullah Juhaisi and Metem Hamza and Alanihat. Okay, the most important part, your work will be exponentials. You start with polystyrene, you end up with so many things. So by modifying polystyrene with laser irradiation, we can do polystyrene with simple nanoparticles, and with laser do polystyrene and nanoparticles and medical application, that is Abdullah work. So meaning that you don't have to worry about your title. We just need to start something, go forwards, explore at least two things from one single keywords. Okay, so this is how it looked like for my graduations of exploring. Okay, meaning that at one point here it can be spark a new research idea and then a new research idea. That's why You start at one point, you get so many that become exponential. So that's why, like coronavirus, the graph is exponential. That's why for any field that you take, we start with small research ideas, then it will be expanded. So this is some part of my research where this is nanospheres, about 500 nanometer size, and I just focus on bombarding one polystyrene, and you can see the differences it's been it created. And now from that you can see that when we try to etch it, the one that we bombarded become resisted from any etching. Meaning that you can, let's say you use organic solvent, you try to take away the polystyrene, meaning that the bombarded polystyrene uh, become hardened. Okay, so that's some of the immediate result of my PhD. So why you fail in your PhD? So we need to try to find it. Why your PhD fail is just like a rotten fruit, meaning that some parts that you haven't done. So when you didn't do this part, meaning that all this other dot will not be completed, meaning that your works is not completed on this side. So meaning that you are having so less, and because of that less things that you have done, you meaning that the strength of your PhD will not be too good. So that's why you will be failing your PhD or your masters. So this give you a good illustrations of how to do your PhD. The basic idea is that you start at one point, get as many as possible, and later reduce all that point to end up as one point that is your conclusion of your thesis. So during my viva, I already started uh, from the beginning. I said the theme of my research is modifying polystyrene. That is the conclusion. That is actually the end results. So in your PhD, you need to realize that you know where is the starting point, you know when is a middle game, and you know when it is will be end. So in the middle game, meaning that if your middle game you don't have so many things happen, you need to realize that you are going to have a rotten fruits of failing PhD. Okay, so that's how simple it is. And again, here you can see that to become a very strong PhD, you need to be able to interrelate of your things, just like electron beam going to this side, perhaps this will be lithography. Okay, and then in lithography you have the chemical etching, reactive etching. So you investigate when the material become resisted to etching. Okay, now graphically when you know uh, that you're having a lot of things, that meaning you become a very strong PhD candidate. So the possibility for you to defend your works is not a problem actually. So by looking at this, you realize my model of nuclear chain reaction can be as your guideline for your PhD. And I did write a book, but it is in my language, and the title is Genius Magapai PhD. It can have two meanings, that those who are genius need to be able to get PhD, and then also the genius people, okay, they know uh, how to look on finding ways on getting PhD. So the basic is simple. And finding way in your getting a PhD, you started at one point, you end up at many, and then you start at many point, you end up at one point or so. So thus the chaos theory, the nuclear generation, can be used to explain how to complete your PhD. And it also can be describes uh, beautifully how Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who is illiterate, the person that don't know how to read, but he is able to create the fastest civilization, that is called Islamic civilization, that been created within 100 years. So that's how Islam prove the prophet status of Muhammad, and also proof on how the Islamic religion is the real true religion. The other religions could not be said as the truth. Okay? Because only Islam religions have the clear formula. Just like in Islam, Prophet Muhammad, the first word that he started to receive from God is Iqra. The meaning is read. So from you, the read, it should be having some materials, and it should be having some kind of revelations. Okay, meaning that there is something, some people that write it and to make it as a book. Okay, and write and read, two things related to read, write and read. Okay, that's how clearly it is in Islam. So simply for every single Muslim man, he need to be good, that he actually influence another two guy. So this simple formula can be implemented directly either to his wife and his kids, and that this formula, if it been followed by the true Muslim, we will create an explosive results like an atomic bomb. That what happened when Islam can create 100 years in creating a civilization. So graphically, it can be also been used for looking into uh, things like you can look at your research idea, you look at keywords, and all the keywords need to be related to each other, and the collections of as much possibility. Then you started to realize that too many to handles, then you need to reduce it, and then you're starting to focus on things, and after focus on things you need to find out what is the novelty of research, and that is the theme of your the whole research idea. Okay. Oh, you can also look at it this way. Your first chapter, you start to look at it. First chapter, literature review more, and research methodology, data collections. So all this data collection need to be related to literature review, related to research methodology, and your introductions. Okay, that is how simple it is to get your PhD. And I think if I am exposed to this formula, will be easy for me to go to do a lot of other things later on. Just like uh, If I know a guy, I get to know another two guy like that. It's so simple. Now using the chaos theory style mapping of your research, and you can get to your PhD. So this is just I try to make you to do some assignments. Now try to map your research ideas into this kind of model. Then you'll be making yourself a favor, and you may realize you have a real model that can be used for your PhD explorations. So with that, I would like to end up this presentations. I hope you enjoy going through it, and uh, okay. So that's uh, with that. Thank you, and I try to show you my real self, and from this. Okay, with that, thank you.